Aneil Karia is the co-writer and director of the short film The Long Goodbye. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, and I wanted to ask you, Aneil, how do you say a long goodbye in a short film?
How do I say what, sorry?
How do you
Oh,
say?
how do you say a long goodbye in a short film? Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, I was thrown there. That's a good
sorry.
question. Yeah, I mean, I am, one of the things I guess I'm proud of is how much we packed into 11 minutes, whatever it is. You know, there was a time when we were like figuring out the idea and going into pre-production that it felt like a kind of ludicrous amount of material and like story and tonal shifts to fit into such a short, space. But we wanted to go big and go bold, and I suppose I knew that my approach towards shooting, where it's quite visceral and naturalistic, and you cover a lot, and you instinctively find things. It does lend itself, I suppose, to then getting into the edit and like paring back and paring back and paring back to and making it leaner and leaner and leaner. But yeah, I suppose we just thought, there were big themes here. We were really, but we were, on the flip side, we were really adamant we didn't want to make something kind of worthy and earnest and heavy that felt like it was just kind of endlessly kind of smacking you around the face with its kind of agenda or something. It wanted to be a kind of visceral, emotional journey, I suppose. And it felt like the best way to do that would be to keep on moving and keep you inside it and then kind of throw you out the other side.
Yeah, as you say, lots packed into the film. What are you hoping audiences take away from the film?
Well, yeah, I always find that difficult to put my finger on, because like I was saying, we wanted it to be a kind of an experience that was kind of felt rather than some kind of educational kind of taught message or whatever. So I don't think there's any kind of like finger wagging agenda of like, do you get it now, or go away with this kind of, this very prescriptive message or something. But I think to try and sum it up, we wanted people to just go away and perhaps realize that this kind of this extreme situation, which feels so kind of heightened and is often described as dystopian and things, it's not like it's not a fiction. It happens. It's happened throughout history, but it's not just some kind of abstract black and white archive. This kind of situation is happening. It's happening in our lifetimes. It's happened around the world. When you think about Bosnia, Myanmar, and in India in our ancestors' lifetimes and things like that. This is how the world works, and even though we can have this kind of quite limited superior sense of how things feel in our own countries, these kind of horrific political circumstances aren't so far away, and it's kind of a slippery slope. But yeah, like I say, we didn't want to kind of whack people over the head with a point. We wanted to make something that put the viewer into the shoes of what are any other British family, really. They just happen to be Asian, and think about, and I guess it's a kind of it's a distillation, this film or this story, of the kind of darkest fears and anxieties that kind of live in the minds of immigrants and second generation immigrants and things, when they start to feel unwelcome in their own country. And yeah, we made this at a time where there was a particularly kind of toxic kind of dialogue or rhetoric around race relations and politics and things like that. And I guess it was a personal response to how that feels sometimes.
Yeah, it's a film that delves into the sort of the sort of dangers of intolerance and where that can lead. And I guess, what do you think the best antidote is for those sort of feelings and sentiments and movements that might be happening anywhere in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's one of those, if I knew the answer to that, I'd be the enlightened one or something. But
Yeah,
I suppose what instinctively what I do think is that, we live in it's not groundbreaking of me to say that we live in a highly polarized time where the whole infrastructure of information, whether that's the internet or whatever, seems to make it easier to, rigidly decide on one camp or one mindset and kind of go deeper and more blinkeredly into that than it is to converse with each other about differing point of views. And I think, it sounds like a bit of a no-brainer, but I think to talk to each other and converse on these things and have a kind of healthy dialogue about these themes, and take less of a kind of us versus them attitude, I suppose, or like, oh, they're politically different to me or have a different stance to me, how can I possibly engage with them or be friends with them? Like, I think breaking those kind of barriers down probably, and realizing we're all human and we're all kind of confused and in different ways and scared of different things, and kind of entering into a kind of more profound dialogue with each other, than backing further into our own corners is probably somewhat of the way forward. But I realize that's easy for me to say and seemingly quite complicated for the human race to to do. Yeah.
The film, like, and I don't want to spoil the specifics of it, but it turns on a dime, and the lives of the characters in the film turn on a dime. How important was it for you to get that sort of the build up to the sort of big pivot in the film, and to just get us comfortable with these characters and get us just really sort of understand sort of how comfortable they are before things get less comfortable?
Yeah, that those tonal shifts that happen, the biggest one probably is kind of in halfway through the film somewhere. They were really intimidating, in terms of executing them well and pulling them off. The motivation, I suppose, behind that first act of the film, which is ostensibly just a naturalistic, almost social realist kind of portrait of a family at home. The motivation was kind of twofold. I mean, first of all, Riz and I talked a lot about how, as British Asians, we were far too used to seeing British Asian families or stories told in a kind of shorthand, slightly kind of tropey way, which we didn't quite recognize. So we were really keen to be able to make something really honest and authentic that accurately reflected just the kind of, to be honest, just the sheer normality and mundaneness of what it means to be in a British Asian home. So that was part of the motivation. But the second thing was, as you say, to pull the viewer into a very, very normal and family environment in an intimate way that would draw you in, that didn't feel kind of heightened in some way or genre, or kind of like a television family as opposed to a real family. So that when there was this kind of rug pull moment and this kind of horrible shift in gear, that you just went with it, and that you felt like you got to know these people. So that kind of fly on the wall feeling of being inside this family home felt really important to kind of pull that off. They, regardless of your faith, these are or ethnic background or whatever, these are just families doing their thing. And we wanted it to be kind of almost, like I say, have that mundaneness. Two of them are just trying to move a sofa, right? And the kind of, like, if I am allowed to say this, kind of piss taking, the affection, the little moments of like just everydayness, I suppose. We wanted to kind of really capture that, in a way that felt really legitimate. Because then it felt like you were going to go into that next, much more heightened space, more deeply embedded, I suppose.
Yeah, we were comfortable, just like the family, like, watching the film, like, what, and then the sort of the last sort of like towards the end of the film, there is a rap that goes through, or a spoken word poem, like, that really delves into some of the themes that we talk about. what was sort of the decision to approach sort of the storytelling through that sort of very different sort of way of storytelling through film?
Yeah, well, that's what felt exciting about it. These tonal shifts are what kind of were really getting us kind of buzzed up about making this film, because I could see very clearly the sort of earnest version of this film where you just tell the story in a very naturalistic way, and you see all this horror, and then you end with I won't spoil it, but you end on this incredibly sad and brutal note, and then that's it kind of thing. But it didn't feel like a sort of generous way of approaching the story. And it also maybe was just going to feel a little familiar. So having these tonal shifts and making these bold decisions were what was exciting about it. The end act, where, like you say, he performs a rap or poem, and it enters this slightly more heightened space where he kind of breaks, the fourth wall and starts speaking to the camera. I think that was about like ending on a note which of defiance, I suppose. Riz had already written this monologue which he showed to me, and I thought that really feels like it needs to be the full stop to this film in a way. We shift from this very unpleasant scene into a kind of poetic space, and that felt really important to me. I think a lot of people who've experienced, who are going through life right now, experiencing what it means to be in a minority and perhaps not feel welcome in your country. I think there's a lot of kind of messy, like, rage and confusion and sadness going on in your mind that you sometimes can't clearly harness or articulate, and it's kind of chaotic, those kind of feelings. I think what that monologue from Riz, or soliloquy, or however you say it, I think what that does beautifully is almost distill all that into this very beautiful, articulate, controlled response to what we've just seen. And there is a kind of defiance and beauty about that. And instead of ending on this, oh God, isn't everything horrific kind of note, it almost takes back the agency and reframes it, which I like. And it felt important, I suppose, to do that.
Yeah, like two more quick questions. One, what did you learn or were challenged by through making this film?
Film wise, like technically?
No, however you want to take it. What have you? How have you grown? What have you? Like, it could be technically, it could be thematically, it could be personally.
Yeah. Well, there were plenty of technical challenges. I mean, we didn't have long to shoot it at all. We were shooting on the two shortest days of the year in the UK, where you get like 6 hours sunlight a day. So really bad timing to make something with natural light. But so anyway, there were plenty of great technical challenges, which you always kind of grow and learn from. But I think it was kind of another lesson for me in realizing that when you make something kind of from the heart and soul, it always yields better results and feels a bit more satisfying creatively. We sat down, having not really known each other, Riz and I, and just this film was born from just two people having conversations about how they felt in that moment, what their kind of hopes were, fears were, and things like that. So it came from quite a kind of personal place, and I think it didn't, there wasn't any kind of intellectualizing of like, what should we make a film about? It just came from the heart in that sense. And it always, I feel like I'm learning more and more that those are always the stronger films.
And just finally, you made the Oscars shortlist for the shortlist for the short film. What does that mean to get that a recognition from the Academy?
Yeah, so we made the shortlist, which is very, very confusing for almost everyone. So what that means is all of my friends and family who don't perhaps work in that world wrongly think we're nominated for an Oscar. No, constantly having to disappoint them and clarify. But anyway, still, I mean, getting onto the shortlist was such an amazing feeling. I mean, like I was saying, we shot it, in this suburban kind of town in England on these freezing cold days with, as ever with short film, not quite enough money or time. And it's just, you know, as if you're kind of in the bitter cold, like trying to get everything done in time, thinking about, it's too abstract, all that stuff, you know. And so to have gone on this journey with it and seen it, first of all, get this very powerful kind of emotional response from people, and then to, you know, be chosen for certain festivals and win awards, it's a really, really special feeling, particularly kind of in this pandemic age where your relationship with your own films is not much less tangible. You're not sitting there watching it with the viewers. You're not talking to people in person about it. Mm. The kind of prizes and accolades and things that it's had have been really, really meaningful, because, you know, they're sort of they're a token of how it's being received out there. I mean, never in our wildest dreams did we imagine we'd be getting onto the Oscar shortlist. So it was pretty mind blowing. And yeah, we feel touched that a story this kind of personal and, I don't know, challenging in some ways has been understood on, you know, such a deep level. And also, yeah, it's just a nice feeling.
Yeah. Well, best case scenario, you will get that nomination because you know there's only so many films on the shortlist. So you got a good chance. Worst case scenario, you miss out, but you know that you actually got close to getting an Oscar nomination, which for a lot of categories, people who don't get nominated have no idea how close they came. You know, so anyway.
Completely, yeah. No, we feel really lucky. Yeah.
Aneil, thanks so much for your time. People watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to make your award predictions, and all the best of luck in getting into that Oscar nomination.
I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on to talk about the film.